Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Gerardo Poli.
And this, oh, sorry. Okay.
One of the best bits of advice I've ever received was to find good mentors and to learn from them. Trusted people who have already done what you're trying to do now. I've been fortunate throughout my career to have some fantastic mentors to help guide me, but I realized that they'd be hard to find and also hard to commit the time to one. This is why we've gathered some of the best minds from the veterinary world and squeezed them for their wisdom so that you don't have to learn the hard way.
With the help of our guests, we flip the veterinary profession on its back and explore its soft underbelly to find the tips, tools, and inspiration that you'll need to build the career that you've always wanted.
I'm Gerardo Poli.
I'm Hubert, and this is the Vet Vault. To kick things off for today, for our first episode, we thought that we'd interview each other so you can get to know us a little bit better. So I'm going to start. I'd love to find out a bit more about Gerardo, and I'm sure so would our listeners. So many of the listeners will be well acquainted with your name from the wildly successful Mini Vet Guide. And if anybody doesn't know what that is, you really should find out. You're missing out. But unlike the rest of the world, being from a different country, when I met this young, enthusiastic young vet at the AVA Congress, I had no idea what the Mini Vet Guide was or who Gerardo Poli was. And I had no idea that he was actually a bit of a household name in the vet industry. So for the benefit of any listeners who don't know who you are, I'll start off with your official bio. So Dr. Gerardo Poli is an emergency veterinarian and the director at Animal Emergency Service in Brisbane, Australia, and the author and creator of the Mini Vet Guide to Companion Animal Medicine and Clinical Pathology flashcards. He's passionate about mentoring, coaching, and inspiring the future generation of vets throughout the world. So that's you in a nutshell, but I'd like to know a bit more. So, Gerardo, when you meet somebody and they ask you, what do you do for a living? What do you say? Are you a vet? Are you an author? Are you a teacher? Who are you?
It's a really good question. I often get asked questions. The ones where I can't answer straight away, I find are the really good ones. Yeah. You might have to give me 30 seconds there, Hubert, to formulate a reply to that one.
You could be all three if you want.
It could be all three. So like maybe a bit of a backstory, which might add a bit of perspective there, is that first and foremost, I consider myself a veterinarian. Mm-hmm. But my career has shifted over the last 10 years into various different roles. And I find myself now sometimes questioning sort of the focus of my career. So for 2 years, I was a small animal practitioner, and my focus there was actually just being the best that I could be and solidifying the knowledge that I learned at uni, and feeling comfortable with my skills as a veterinarian and learning how to communicate with clients to get to great outcomes for pets. Then I transitioned to emergency, and that was actually because of a financial situation I found myself in where I couldn't afford my house, and my job as a veterinarian in a general practice, I didn't have the earning capacity there, so I actually shifted into night shift to try and keep my house, and that was an incredibly stressful time for me.
Yeah.
Because that coincided with a breakup in a long-term relationship for 12 years. So a lot of soul searching there, and a lot of time spent considering sort of what I thought was my, I suppose, vision of where I wanted to head with in this profession. And I thought I'd be a general practitioner and general practitioner owner. Mm-hmm. So then it transitioned to emergency. Then I tried to be just the best emergency clinician I could be. And that took about 4 years of continuing study and education. And I'm not saying that I'm there. It kind of implied that I'm there. Definitely not.
Nobody's ever there, mate.
Exactly right. But then what happened was I stepped up into management roles, and then management roles led to leadership roles, and leadership roles then led to the possibility for business ownership. So a couple of years back, I became a director of Animal Emergency Service,
Mm.
And that then has sort of guided my career choices moving forward in terms of my professional development and the things that I look at, and the vision I see for our team at Animal Emergency Service, the veterinary team, but also the vet nurse team and client care representative team. So the whole entire team now, a lot of my focus now is about wanting to build leaders within our industry, and within our profession. First starting with actually trying to build a leadership team, or leadership capabilities in those that are wanting to step up into responsibility. So emerging leaders within the Animal Emergency Service itself. So
That's interesting.
yeah, so like I'm still a veterinarian. I still see primary cases on weekends, and still love getting in there and really seeing the positive impacts from the actions I take, and from the interaction I have with clients. But a lot of my focus these days is sharing knowledge and sharing information, but also trying to actually be the best I can in terms of empowering people and creating a environment which is conducive for development of leadership.
Okay. I like that. It wasn't a path that you had planned out and you're following it to the T. You might have some sort of idea, and then life happens and you adapt and do what you need to do to stay alive and do it well. And then good things come of it. It's a great story, actually. I really like that. And what about the mini vet guide? How does it happen that a student writes a runaway success clinical guide? How did that come about?
Yeah, so that in itself was quite a lot of work in progress, and it started small after I graduated from uni, and it was basically a collection of notes that started at something like 80 pages or something. Now it's like 360.
Did you make that? Did you make that for yourself, or was it always intended to be shared?
It was intended for myself, to be honest,
Really?
because it was too hard to carry textbooks around, and also the stuff that was in textbooks was just not very concise.
Yeah, it's cumbersome.
Very cumbersome. So so really kind of put together the things that I thought was, well, the stuff that I couldn't remember, and the stuff that I felt that I needed to draw upon frequently and regularly.
Yeah. Okay.
So it started small, and then as I went through my masters, and as I went through my memberships, and as I've done attending conferences and things, sort of added to that, and sort of created my own little tome of info that I refer to quite frequently. So things I think that are quite common, and that that we see every day. Give me 1 second. Hubert, I just got to let my dog out.
Okay. She says she's heard the story before. She's bored. She wants to go. Go out and do something else.
That's exactly right. It's actually Diesel, my dog, and he's deaf, actually. So I'm sure he's deaf from hearing that story.
I said that's not the fluffy white dog. I've seen your fluffy white dog on social media. What is Diesel?
Diesel is a border collie. Yeah, he's actually cool. Yeah. I never grew up with pets, so I decided on veterinary science because of the common thought that I wouldn't have to communicate with clients, so I would just
common erroneous thought that everybody has. Because I don't like people.
And then they started talking about this thing at uni, which was the human animal bond, and I was like, what is that? So then it was in second year, and I thought, actually, maybe I should buy a dog. So I bought a dog. People in my class grew up with dogs, and they're just talking about their experience with their dogs. And dogs, I'm just like, maybe I should actually experience that. So I bought a dog, and actually I put her to sleep about a month ago, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was pretty sad. She had seizures, and she was
So how old was she? That sounds like a long time.
Yeah,
Well,
she was at 14 years old.
that tells us how long you've been in the profession for.
Hmm.
That you've actually just skipped ahead to one of my next questions. Is what was your motivation to become a vet? Why did you choose the veterinary path?
Chose the veterinary path because of the science.
Okay.
So it's not the like when I graduated, I didn't know what I wanted to do. When I finished high school, I didn't know what I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
So I left. The day after I finished high school, I left home and traveled to Melbourne, lived in Brisbane, and worked in miscellaneous jobs in cafes and things, and trying to soul search and find myself, and came back to Brisbane, and I actually started working at libraries. I actually was a librarian assistant, and quickly figured out that it's probably not what I wanted to do long term. It was actually a really great job, and it supported me all the way through uni, actually. And I got quite a lot of crap for it.
For being a librarian.
For being a librarian.
Boring on the outside, but
yeah, that's right. But it taught me key skills in terms of client communication. So yeah. So especially with I would say a population subset that I don't generally engage with. So older people, I was only 19, 20, so really had to sort of pick up my game in terms of being professional, also being engaged and listening and those things. So that's really helped me out in terms of my career as a veterinarian. But essentially I got into science. I got into science because I really love science, and started in human medicine science, and then transitioned into veterinary medicine. Actually, I didn't do so well in high school, so I had to upgrade my scores, my uni marks, and then it took me 2 years to get into vet science, and there I was. And then all of a sudden I realized I didn't understand anything about pets, so that I bought a dog. And then I became a pet owner, and then started to understand the bond that everyone refers to, and in order for me to be a successful veterinarian and to help maintain the bonds between clients and their pets, I really had to be quite successful in communication. And the mini vet guide was actually there to help me in terms of my clinical content, because I just couldn't remember anything, and it was quite unsettling for me to not have access to the stuff I needed to know. So it was basically filled a spot there, which was, it was portable, it was relevant, and it was concise. So
that's such an interesting pathway. If you look at how many people in the veterinary industry, it's just a lifelong passion. They've always wanted to do it. I've always known I wanted to be a vet. I wonder if there's any correlation between dissatisfaction in the career and how you approach it. Is it you entered it with few expectations of what it would be like, and some people might enter the industry, the profession, with clear views of what they think it's going to be like, and if it's not exactly like that, then they end up disappointed. That's really interesting.
That's actually a really good point there, and it's that comes up in many areas of life, obviously, but quite often we come across that in leadership teams, and when we talk about where we want to go and what we want to do as a company moving forward, and even as a leader, you have an expectation about what something should look like. But then when you then move forward and work on your strategy and roll things out, quite often it doesn't roll out that way. And one of the biggest things that you have to do is actually detach yourself from the outcome. You want to achieve that outcome, but then you actually have to detach yourself from what it looks like. Otherwise, if it doesn't work out that way, then it can cause considerable stress and also feeling like as if you didn't succeed in what you were doing. So
yeah, absolutely. What I heard somebody say once, that happiness equals the difference between expectations and reality.
I love that. I should write that one down.
I think it's a very, very big factor. Now we're getting completely sidetracked. I meant to try and keep this episode short. It always happens when I chat to you. I think that's why we started this, because every time I chat to you and just sit and chat to you for hours. But we'll try and keep it on track to try and keep our first episode concise. We can have long ones later on. So that's that was your path. What is it these days? What drives you? What motivates you? What keeps you positive about what you do?
Yeah. So I went through a process of kind of looking at my future and where I was going to go, and I did have a plan somewhat, but what I find is that my particular personality type, and I'm a driver, and that means is that I can swap and change and feel comfortable completely with where I'm going, and then find a different direction and be engaged by that, and bam, there I go. And so every 2 years or so, I find that I would progress down a slightly different path to where I thought was 2 years before. And so having just accepted that as what I do, I had to kind of relook at the values and what were my values and what was important for me. And contribution and contributing to people was one of the biggest things that I find that was important for me. Mm-hmm. And I spend quite a lot of time doing. And so moving forward from there, it's how can I serve, and how can I serve the team that we have around us at Animal Emergency Service, and how can I serve people around me, close friends and professional colleagues and things. So my career pathway still is a veterinarian, and still with regards to ensuring that Animal Emergency Service continues down the vision it has as a company. But now I'm kind of focusing a bit more on how can I get better myself so I can help people. So
get better in terms of increasing your own skill and mindset. Clarify, get better.
Yeah, sure thing. And I think ultimately my push for the last 5 years, 6 years has been about getting better clinically. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what everyone wants. Well, not everyone. Everyone wants to have a certain level of clinical expertise and clinical knowledge, and they definitely need that. And I'm not downplaying that. But I do feel that there is a certain level or a certain point where you get to where you actually, maybe you feel comfortable, maybe you don't feel comfortable, but either way, you have to start looking at actually you as a person.
Yeah.
Your behaviors, your beliefs, your values. Start realigning those, start working back to those, start finding your purpose and your why and so forth. And really kind of working on the softer side of, the other side of clinical skills, which is, as a veterinarian, you need to, be a empathetic and compassionate person, but also make sure that you're actually still working towards something that is in line with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
When you have this disconnect between your values and what actually occurs in reality, then it actually causes quite a lot of stress. And so, helping people step into their futures, I suppose, but making sure that it's aligned with what's important for them.
Yep, I couldn't agree more. Which is exactly why we're having this conversation. That's exactly why we started this whole project, to try and help people realize that they need to focus on that. The only thing I'm not going to disagree with, but you say people need to get clinically proficient and then start looking at. I think it is at the same time, or even before, while you becoming clinically proficient, realize that your biggest stresses in the veterinary profession is not necessarily going to be clinically related. It's going to be people and relationship related. And I think personally, I could have had a much better first 10 years of my career if I'd realized this and actively worked on it, actively try to improve myself, instead of having that arrogant attitude of, I'm perfect, I'm fine, I've got this. So no, that's I couldn't agree more.
I totally agree with what you're saying there, and I think generally the focus is clinical. Generally the first thing people think about, I just need to get better. at just knowing more and doing more. And then once I get better at knowing more and doing more, then I'll feel more confident. So then when I go and talk to clients, I'll have more certainty and clarity in what I say. Therefore, the clients will believe me, and then I can do what I need to do in order to save their pets. So, and I totally agree with what you're saying there, Hubert, and in that it has to be at the same time as developing yourself as a professional and working on all those things that are in the background, which impact the way you are and who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. It should be an interesting journey. I can't wait to hear what other guests have to say about it all.
Yeah, that's actually something I'm really quite excited to that as a part of this series, and is to hear other people and hear what other people have to say, and what kind of things that they've come across and what they've learned along the way. And if we can share that would be incredible. That would be an incredible impact, I think, that it can have on many people.
Excellent. Well, I hope so. So that's it for now, mate. I'm done with you. Have you got anything for me? People at least know you. Nobody knows who I am.
Well, maybe I should explain a little bit of Hubert from my world. So I met Hubert. Hubert is an emergency veterinarian in the south of Perth, and it's always just been this really nice, genuine, good-looking dude that every time I come across, that he's just really engaging to speak to, and always comes from a place of genuine sort of engagement, but also genuine sort of want and interest. So it wasn't hard before. I suppose I thought that maybe I should get to know this guy a bit more, and as things occur in veterinary land, all grand big decisions and grand plans are created around lots of alcohol. So
I think it was rum at the time. Was it?
Rum. I think we transitioned from beer to wine to rum, and we found that we had a common interest. And when you shared that you've had numerous, actually, maybe that'll be the first question.
Okay.
Yeah. So Hubert, what sparked your interest in this in terms of wanting to do this series or this podcast series to get information out there?
Okay. I think it's probably a long time interest, longer than I realized at the time. Working as a vet for over 15 years now, and working alongside people in 3 different continents, and seeing young vets be dissatisfied and unhappy with their career choice, or really struggling in day-to-day practice, and personally struggling. There was a long time where I thought I made a mistake. I didn't always enjoy being a vet very much at all. And then on the flip side, meeting older, more successful veterinarians who really seemed to thrive on it, who really loved it, who took the pressures and just really loved it. I think it was always on my mind. Why do I hate it? Why do other people love it so much? Is it are the problems? And then seeing friends leave. Lots of my vet friends left the industry, try to find alternative pathways. And I often wondered about what is it that you have this group of people who are obviously very passionate about something, and then they work very hard to get into the industry, and then suddenly go, oh crap, I don't like it. Are the problems inherent to the industry, or are there ways that we can better prepare ourselves and to thrive as veterinarians? And then over a 10 to 15 year, let's say 10-year period, finding my own strategies, finding ways to start enjoying it, and suddenly going, oh, you know what, I actually do like it. And then trying to assess why now? Why do I like it now? What am I doing differently? How am I thinking differently? And then subsequently, as I became more of a manager and an employer, communicating with younger vets, I found myself writing lots of emails to vets, trying to help them with difficult situations, and again realizing that most of the problems they're having are not necessarily clinical. I'm helping them with relationships and people and their own attitude. And light bulb eventually went on in my head, and I went, I should be writing this down, or maybe I should be sharing it on a wider basis than just the one-on-one basis. So I started doing that, started writing things down. I had this idea of maybe doing a book about the veterinary soft skills sort of a thing, but then quickly realized that I am still learning and I still have a lot to learn. So instead of me waffling on about what I thinking, well, let's get other people involved, such as yourself or other successful vets, and go, well, just having that realization that there must be so much knowledge and skill and thought patterns and just so much knowledge and wisdom out there that if we can condense it into some format that we can share with other vets, and hopefully just help people in those first five ideas of their career to find their feet, find their niche, and be a bit positive. I often feel there's a lot of negativity in the veterinary profession. That's not. There's problems like in any industry, but we don't have to focus on it. Trying to focus on the positives and just be happier as a profession. So that's me. And then met you, as I said, we sat and had those drinks, and I told you about what I'm working on and my idea, and you were instant. In fact, but when I met you, I sort of thought, yeah, it's a good idea, but if I write it, nobody's going to read it. How do you get it out there? And then your interest re-sparked my interest, realizing that, well, there's somebody else who's passionate and who is who already has an audience of people who are willing to listen to what he has to say. And I just thought it'd be a great partnership to try and spread the message that I feel passionate about.
And you're saying there, just listen to you talk then, and also reliving and reflecting back on our discussions numerous times over now. What would be a great outcome for you with regards to this?
Just people engaging in this conversation. If we create something, whether it's just this podcast or a book or something, and people just listening and reading and starting to think about it. Changing the attitudes and saying, we're actually very fortunate to be in an amazing profession. And when I say profession, I try to not be narrow-minded about thinking just being clinical veterinarians, but just people being thoughtful about how they approach their everyday life, how they approach their clients, and thoughtful in their decisions of where's my career going to go. And if it's not going the way I want to, instead of feeling trapped and negative, reconsidering, going, look, I'm very fortunate to have the qualification I have. I could change tack. I could just point my ship in a different direction, and as you did, work hard and make the most of it.
It was through your sharing and our conversation that actually inspired me to become involved in this, and I suppose it's all about stories, right? It's all about
absolutely
stories and hearing people's stories and what they come through. And I suppose the goal of this is to people to come on and share their stories and share their journeys, as you said before. But you mentioned just then about working in 3 continents. So I suppose the audience probably doesn't know that kind of background, and neither do I, actually.
Yeah, okay.
Can you share on that? That'd be awesome.
Okay. Yeah, I qualified, studied veterinary science in Pretoria in South Africa. Qualified in 2002. Had a short little stint in mixed practice in South Africa, fairly disastrous, but not through no fault of my own. It was just the wrong practice for a new graduate to try. Sole charge with a girl who graduated with me. It was a baptism of fire, but it definitely wasn't a good idea. So I fled to the UK for a couple of months. I was already dating another vet at the time who was quite a bit younger than me. Well, quite a few years behind me in veterinary science. So went to the UK and then decided I missed her too much. So went back to South Africa and worked in, funnily enough, emergency practice there. One of my first longer term jobs was in emergency practice, and waited around for her, married her. And the two of us popped over back to the UK. Spent 3 years working in rural Wales in a mixed practice, but I just did the smallies, and then decided that Australia's the place for us. So about 10 years ago, yeah, actually 10 years ago, almost on the dot, moved to Australia and started working in a small animal practice, daytime practice, and about 5 years in, realizing that that where I worked there wasn't really an emergency, a dedicated emergency after hours clinic, and so started that up about 5 years ago, and that's still my baby. Still run it, still manage it, still work in it, and enjoying doing so.
And the transition here, is there a transition here in the future for you, do you feel? Like,
I don't have, I where I am at the moment, clinically or work-wise, veterinary work-wise, I like the clinic. I think more, I am transitioning to more and more management, and training. I think similar to yourself, and unfortunately, doing that effectively. Let's say doing regular night shifts does not allow doing that effectively on the long term. So I'm doing fewer clinical shifts and more time at the computer, trying to orchestrate things and growing and building the practice and improving the practice. And then I enjoy the writing side of things. I think the other reason why I got involved in it is writing stuff. I've always written for myself for no particular reason, and now having this to focus on, I'm really enjoying that. I'm enjoying writing blogs at the moment, but hopefully one day transition into doing that in a more serious capacity. So learning and growing.
I must admit, actually, when I read your blogs, so they're freaking amazing, and just so well written, and the content in it's amazing. And I think I've automatically decided that if we're ever going to write a book together, Hubert, you're writing it.
Oh, that's not negotiable.
The books that I write and anything that I write has bullet points, and it's all sort of sectioned out and formatted like as if it was like supposed to, be read in like 20 seconds, as opposed to the beautiful sort of eloquent language that you use. So
there's a lot to be said for your technique. I think with a joint effort might be the way to go, because sometimes I can ramble on a little bit. It becomes a bit poetic, and whereas yours, concise, is probably something I should work on.
No, that's just my nature, just being bam, 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 bam.
Yes, I think it's a good partnership then.
Yeah. Whereabouts actually do you put your blogs at this stage?
Do you want the actual website? It's just called The Art of Veterinary Science. theartofveterinaryScience.com is a veterinary blog. I have another blog that's more personal stuff, more not vet related. If anybody's interested, they can look at the other parent site. Google that. It'll come up. I can put it in the show notes. Once we figure out how to do show notes, I can put it. I always hear other podcasts say that we'll put it in the show notes. I'm sure we can put it in the show notes once we launch this.
So as part of the preparing for this podcast, we did a large survey, and we surveyed students and graduate veterinarians who've purchased my book or who follow me on social media, and we got a couple hundred responses, which has given us quite a lot of insight with regards to what we would like to cover and what people are asking and looking for. Do you have on top of your head some of the things that we might be covering and in the future moving forward?
Well, I said I drew up a little summary. It was very interesting reading it, and it's actually good to go through. Probably 80-90% of respondents were actually vet students still, rather than practicing veterinarians. And it's interesting to get yourself back into the headspace of remembering what you were worried about and how worried you were about stuff, how worried they are about stuff. I think a lot of what we should address is just to assuage people's fears. That whole thing about how am I ever going to be good enough? How am I ever going to do this? It's so daunting. Is just through conversations, again, through stories. I think every vet we talk to will have the same message. I certainly think they would, of saying, don't stress about it so much. You are actually better equipped and more ready than you realize. Just roll with it, and the learning will come, and the growth will come. So that's a general theme that I hope will come across. There's a definite interest in stories. People all want to know how you get from point A to B. How did other people do it? The people we respect and look up to. So I'm hoping to get some good stories out of our podcast guests, and then a lot of communication. I'm hoping that we can create some actionable steps and guides, and how do you get better with people skills, communication, conflict, talking about money, talking about mistakes. How do you deal with mistakes? Those are probably the top of the list. There's a lot of stuff we can talk about. We can have years of podcasts just to get through all the questions. But those are the ones that I think are the first ones I think we'll start addressing.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
Have you got any messages that you think we should focus on? Like when you're thinking about the project, what do you hope to achieve with this?
Just I totally believe that through storytelling and people sharing their journey, there'll be nuggets of information there that will provide insight and also you put perspective on things. You know, the big thing is that we have heaps of blind spots where we don't really know actually the things that are influencing our thoughts and which impact our actions. So through sharing, blind spots will open in our audience, and that's actually something that I really look forward to hearing back from the audience and the people who listen, to see if you know what messages they come across through the people that we interview and how it impacts them.
Yeah.
Ultimately, as you said there, developing resources that can help, not just in a podcast kind of format, but guides and resources that we can help put together, that we can share, that will add a bit of structure behind the lessons that are and the advice that's provided in this format.
Yeah. Oh, let's see if we can do it. Let's make a difference.
Fucking, I can't close it off there. To all those who are listening today, thank you for your time, and I hope that this first session has given you a bit of an insight as to who we are and where we've come from and what we hope to achieve with this podcast. So moving into the future, we look forward to hearing people's stories, but also look forward to our first speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. We'll catch up with you next time. That's it.
That's it.
That's it.